So I bought a gas station. Yeah, that gas station. The one with the flickering sign and the guy who's been standing by pump 3 since approximately 1997. I thought I was buying a money printer. Cars pull in, gas goes in, money comes out, simple. I was so wrong. Day one, I stood behind that counter in a blazer I definitely overdressed in, and I watched 40 cars pull up to my pumps in 1 hour. I remember thinking I am going to be extremely rich by lunchtime. By lunchtime, I had made enough profit to buy myself a sandwich. Not a nice sandwich, a gas station sandwich. Nobody tells you this going in, so let me be the one to ruin your dream for you. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why the pump is basically a charity operation, where the real money actually hides, and what's buried under the concrete that nobody wants to talk about. Let's start with the number that broke my heart. I assumed selling gasoline was like selling anything else. Mark it up, pocket the difference. Here's the actual math. Crude oil is about 51% of what you pay at the pump. Refining takes another 17%. Taxes eat 17% more. Distribution takes 8%. That leaves about 7% for me, the guy who owns the station. And after credit card processing fees and wages, my actual profit is somewhere between 1 and 3 cents on the dollar. Industry veterans call a good day 10 to 15 cents a gallon after fees, not 10 to 15% cents. I have personally watched a customer buy $60 of gas, and I made less money than the receipt paper cost me. So why does every single gas station on Earth still have a giant sign advertising the fuel price in letters 4 feet tall? Because the fuel is not the product, the fuel is the bait. It's the free sample at Costco, except the free sample is a fossil fuel, and I'm still required to sell it to you. The pump's entire job is to get your car to stop moving long enough for you to walk inside, because inside is where I actually make my money. Here's the twist nobody warns you about when you sign the papers. Fuel accounts for about 70% of a gas station's total revenue, but it only accounts for about 30% of the actual profit. The convenience store, the other 30% of revenue, generates 70% of the profit. Let me say that number again because it rearranged my entire understanding of this business. A $1.50 soda cost me about 50 cents. That's a 66% margin. Coffee, prepared food, snacks, some of these categories run 30 to 35% margins. Compare that to fuel sitting at maybe 5 to 10% gross margin before I even pay the card processor. So somewhere around month 2, I stopped thinking of myself as a gas station owner. I started thinking of myself as a guy who runs a slightly cursed convenience store with a very expensive parking lot attachment. I rearranged the whole layout, coffee machine front and center, snacks at eye level, impulse buys by the register. I became genuinely obsessed with inventory turnover, which is a sentence I never expected to say out loud in my life. If a case of motor oil sits on my shelf for 4 months without selling, that's not inventory. That's an interest-free loan I gave to my supplier, and I would like it back, please. I want to be clear, I am not a fuel retailer. I am a snack distributor with a really specific real estate requirement. But before we get to the thing buried in my parking lot, let's talk about the thing buried in my contract. When I bought the station, it came with a big familiar oil company logo already on the sign. I assumed that meant I got to buy their fuel at some kind of insider discount. A little partnership, a little love. Nope. That logo comes with a supply agreement, and a supply agreement is basically a leash. I am contractually required to buy fuel from one specific supplier at their price for years at a time. If a cheaper truck rolls by tomorrow with fuel for 4 cents less a gallon, I am not legally allowed to buy from it. So while I'm out here fighting for 10 to 15 cents a gallon in profit, I don't even get to shop around for my own core product. It's less like owning a business and more like being a very committed tenant who also has to wear the landlord's t-shirt. And then there's shrinkage, which is the industry's polite word for things disappearing that I did not sell. Spoiled hot dogs, a case of energy drinks that vanished, a gentleman who was very confident he'd already paid for that. Industry estimates put shrinkage at 3 to 5% of earnings, just gone every single year, like a tax for trusting the general public. And then there's the station across the street, which exists purely, I believe, to torment me personally. Gas stations compete on price the way boxers compete on punching each other in the face. Directly, constantly, and with signage. If they drop their price by 3 cents a gallon, my traffic visibly drops within the hour. People notice 3 cents. People do not notice loyalty. So some weeks I am pricing my fuel almost at cost just to keep cars rolling in, hoping they walk inside and buy the coffee that actually pays my bills. I have, on multiple occasions, lost money on the fuel that lured someone in to buy the snack that saved my week. Okay, numbers aside, let's talk about the thing that actually kept me up at night. Underneath my gas station, there are enormous steel tanks buried in the ground, filled with fuel. Some of these tanks in America have been sitting underground for over 25 years. Steel in dirt for decades, what could possibly go wrong? Here's what. Over 532,000 confirmed leaks have been reported from underground storage tanks in the US since 1988. If your tank starts leaking and nobody notices for a while, you are not looking at a small bill. A minor soil contamination cleanup might run you $10,000. A leak that reaches the groundwater underneath your property can blow past $1 million. The average cleanup cost, according to industry data, lands around $130,000. And by the way, 10 gallons of leaked gasoline is enough to contaminate 12 million gallons of groundwater. 10 gallons, 12 million. When I bought my station, my inspector handed me a report on the tank's age like he was handing me a diagnosis. I remember standing there thinking, so I didn't just buy a gas station. I bought a steel time bomb with a coffee machine on top of it. And here's the part that made me want to lie down on the pavement. Sometimes the liability doesn't even go away when you sell the station. There's a case where an oil major sold off a station decades ago, tanks and all, and still got legally dragged back into a cleanup lawsuit because a court decided they still counted as an operator of that tank. Meaning buying old fuel infrastructure isn't just a bet on your ownership. It can be a bet on everyone who touched that tank before you too. I now sleep with a tank monitoring app open on my nightstand like it's a baby monitor for diesel. All right. Let's put actual numbers to this so you can decide if you hate this business as much as I secretly love it. Say my station does about $1.3 million a year in total revenue. Fuel sales, thin as they are, kick back around $18,200 in actual profit for the year. The convenience store on that same $1.3 million in overall revenue kicks back around $39,000 in profit. Add those together, and I'm sitting at roughly $57,200 in total net profit for the year. Fuel contributed 32% of that profit. The snack aisle contributed 68%. And there's one more cloud on the horizon I try not to think about after 10 p.m. Every year, more cars on the road don't need my pumps at all. Electric vehicles don't stop for gas, which means they also don't wander inside for a coffee, a snack, or an impulse buy lottery ticket. My entire twist, the convenience store saving the fuel business, depends on cars needing to stop here in the first place. I try not to do the long-term math on that one. I have enough math to do already. Now let's talk overhead, because nobody hands you a spreadsheet before you sign anything. My fixed monthly costs, wages, insurance, utilities, card processing infrastructure, land comfortably north of $25,000 to $30,000 a month before I sell a single drop of gas or a single bag of chips. That means every month starts as a hole I have to dig myself out of before I see $1 of actual profit. Let's walk through what a genuinely good month looks like. Strong traffic, the coffee machine behaves itself, and my C-store sales are humming along nicely. Say I clear about $8,500 in gross profit that month across fuel and inside sales combined. After my roughly $28,000 in fixed costs, I'm still short, so a good month alone doesn't even cover the lights. That's the part nobody explains. Profitability here is an annual game, not a monthly one. Some months exist purely to survive until a better month shows up. Now, let's talk about a bad month, because I've lived through a few. Slower traffic, a delivery truck was late, so my hot food case sat half empty for a week, and shrinkage ran a little high. Gross profit might land closer to $3,000 for the entire month. Against that same $28,000 in fixed costs, that's a hole of roughly $25,000 in a single month. And that's assuming nothing goes wrong underground. One tank inspection with bad news and my entire year's profit margin evaporates into an environmental cleanup invoice. So here's my actual advice from a man who has made his peace with this. If you're buying a gas station for the gas, walk away right now. If you're buying a gas station because you want to become genuinely excellent at selling coffee, energy drinks, and beef jerky to strangers at 6 a.m., and you've had a full environmental inspection done on those tanks, congratulations, you might actually be built for this. I bought a gas station thinking I was buying fuel. What I actually bought was a convenience store with an extremely high-stakes parking lot. If you want to see what happens when I buy the next terrible business idea, subscribe, because there's always a next one.